Welcome to Doctorates of the Absurd, your provider of belief on demand.
That is quite an ominous way to start.
I think it's the only way to start today.
Yeah.
Because we aren't just doing a deep dive into a book or an article someone wrote last year. We are doing something a bit different, a sort of forensic excavation.
Right.
We are looking at a document that comes to us from the near future. Specifically, it's a political theory analysis, and it's dated early 2026.
Yeah, and just to orient everyone, this isn't science fiction, not in the, laser beams and flying cars sense. It's more of a projection, a kind of found document scenario.
A thought experiment.
A thought experiment, exactly. It's a text analyzing the theoretical framework of a potential Trump 2.0 administration. But it's written as if it's already happening.
And this is really why I wanted to get you in here to talk about this. This isn't your standard cable news punditry. We are not going to be talking about swing voters in Pennsylvania or, the price of milk.
No, not at all. The document's title is Trump 2.0 and the Postmodern Melian Dialogue.
Which, I have to say, sounds like the syllabus for a college course specifically designed to give you nightmares.
It's certainly a heavy cocktail. It's smashing together a couple of very different things. On one hand, you have ancient Greek military history.
Thucydides
Specifically. And on the other, you've got this high concept French philosophy. We're talking postmodernism, Foucault, Lyotard, that whole crowd.
And the text uses that combination to deconstruct how power operates in its version of 2026.
It does. So our mission today is really to explore this source text. The whole premise is that the President of the United States in this 2026 scenario isn't just a politician. The author calls him a postmodern Athenian.
A postmodern Athenian. We're definitely going to have to unpack that.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to be really, really clear up front because this is obviously a radioactive topic. We are not taking political sides here. This isn't about red team versus blue team.
No.
We are doing what this text demands of us, which is to analyze the architecture of power.
We're looking at the blueprints, not the color of the paint on the walls.
Exactly. We're looking at how truth, how alliances, and how reality itself are being, renegotiated.
Yeah.
It's a deconstruction of an entire worldview.
Okay, so let's start with the atmosphere of the document, what our brief calls the narrative arc.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started reading the introduction, I felt this very specific tension. The author gives it a name. He calls it an existential itch.
It's a palpable anxiety, isn't it? It's that feeling, and I think a lot of people probably feel it right now, even before 2026, that the world has just gone off its axis, that the gyroscope is broken.
It's that sensation that the rules we all grew up with, the sort of basic physics of politics, have just stopped working. Like you press the brake pedal in your car and the car suddenly accelerates.
Precisely. The source text describes a fundamental shift. It's a move from what it called a modern order to something called a postmodern theater.
Okay, modern order versus postmodern theater.
And to really understand that itch, you have to get what we're losing. What we are, in a sense, mourning is that modern order.
And let's be specific when we say modern order. We're not talking about iPhones and modern appliances, are we? We're talking about the structure that came out of the Enlightenment.
We're talking about the operating system of the Western world for, 300, almost 400 years? Since the Peace of Westphalia in 1648?
So nation-states.
The belief that the world is composed of rational nation-states, yes. The belief in institutions. The belief in, treaties.
The idea that if you sign a treaty, it exists. It's a real thing in the world.
Yes. The modern order is fundamentally built on the idea of discoverable objective truth. That's why we have the UN, the WTO, NATO. These aren't just buildings in New York or Brussels. They are the physical manifestations of a belief system.
What's the core belief?
The belief that law is, or at least should be, superior to force.
And that's the meta-narrative, right? That's the big story we tell ourselves. History is a long march toward justice. Democracies don't go to war with each other. Science will solve our problems.
Exactly. Those are the comforting bedtime stories of liberal internationalism. And the itch that the author is describing is the creeping realization that that book is on fire. The meta-narratives are collapsing.
So, okay, if the modern order is the dying protagonist in this story, who is the villain? Or what is the villain?
See, that's the interesting twist in the text. The villain isn't a person. It's not Trump. Trump, in this analysis, is just the avatar, the symptom.
Okay.
The villain is an idea. It is the active rejection of the liberal international order itself.
The rejection of the very premise that rules matter.
It's an all-out assault on the concept of fairness. The text argues that the modern world was, in many ways, a delusion, A nice dream where we all pretended that institutions have power that is independent of raw force.
But they don't.
The villain is the cold, hard realization that the UN has no army, that international law is often just a polite fiction when powerful interests are at stake.
And that brings us to the stakes, because the text pivots right here, immediately, to history. To explain 2026, it drags us all the way back to 416 BCE, to a small island.
The island of Melos.
Melos.
This is the absolute anchor of the entire argument. You cannot understand this text theory of Trump 2.0 without first understanding the Melian Dialogue.
So set the scene for us. This is the Peloponnesian War, right? Athens versus Sparta. Who are the Melians in all this?
Melos is a tiny island in the Cretan Sea. It was technically a Spartan colony, but they were determined to be neutral. They just wanted to sit out the war.
They just want to be left alone.
Tend their olive groves, trade a little, and be left alone. That was it.
In Athens, what's their role?
Athens was the naval superpower, the empire, and they land a massive fleet on the shores of Melos, the generals Cleomedes and Theseus. But they don't attack right away.
What do they do?
They send envoys, diplomats, up to the city for a conference. A negotiation. Or so the Merians think. And the historian Thucydides reconstructs this dialogue. And I have to say, it is one of the most chilling documents in all of human history.
Oh, so?
Because the Melians sit down expecting a modern debate, a civilized discussion. They want to talk about justice. They want to talk about their rights as a neutral party. They want to appeal to the honor of the gods.
They're bringing a law book to a knife fight.
It's worse than that. They're bringing a law book to a slaughterhouse. The Athenian envoys stop them before they even get started. They say, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it's very close, let's not waste time talking about justice.
Wow.
We both know that justice is only a question between equals in power.
Justice is only a question between equals. I mean, that one line basically ends the modern world, doesn't it?
It completely dismantles the premise, and then they deliver the line that defines this entire text we're analyzing. They say, the strong do what they can, and the weak suffer what they must.
It's absolute moral nihilism. There's no other word for it.
It is realpolitik in its purest, most undiluted form. The Melians try to argue back, They say, but if you destroy us, you'll anger the gods. All the other states will see you as tyrants.
A rational argument.
And the Athenians essentially just shrug. They say, the gods seem to favor the strong. We've noticed that. And as for looking like tyrants, fear makes us safer than love ever will.
So how does it end? The Melians, they refuse to submit.
They put their faith and hope in fortune. They trust in the Spartans to come save them. They trust in the narrative that, good eventually prevails over evil.
Yes.
And the Athenians build a wall around the city. They starve them out. And when Melos finally surrenders, Athens executes every single adult male.
Everyone.
They sell all the women and children into slavery, and then they repopulate the now empty island with Athenian colonists. Melos, as a people and a culture, simply ceases to exist.
They just wiped the hard drive?
They prove their point. Arguments don't stop swords.
So let's bring this all the way back to the document, to Trump 2.0 and the postmodern Melian Dialogue. The core argument, then, is that in 2026, the United States has stopped pretending to be the good policeman of the modern order.
Yes.
And has decided, consciously, to become Athens.
That's it. The text argues that this Trump 2.0 administration completely abandons the pretense of international law. It stops speaking the language of the Melians, justice, rules, fairness, and starts speaking only the language of Athens.
Power, transaction, dominance.
But, and this is crucial, with a very specific twist, a postmodern twist.
Well, that's the twist.
Right, because the original Athens, for all its brutality, was at least honest. They told you to your face they were going to kill you, and why. The text argues that the 2026 version of this is all wrapped up in spectacle. It's Athens meets reality TV.
Okay, that feels like a good place to pivot to the engine room of this theory, the actual logic.
Yeah.
We have this core binary the text sets up, modern versus postmodern.
Or, to put it in the text-specific terms, rules and facts on one side versus spectacle and narrative on the other.
I feel like we need to define postmodern here carefully because it's a word that gets thrown around and abused all the time. People use it to mean weird art, or just, anything goes relativism.
That's fair. In this specific context, referencing thinkers like Lyotard and Foucault, postmodern refers to the collapse of a shared, verifiable truth with a capital T.
How so?
Well, in the modern world, if you broke a treaty, there was a paper trail. There was a factual reality we could all point to and agree on.
You could say, here's the signature. You clearly violated Article 5.
Exactly. But in the postmodern world, the text argues reality itself is constructed by language. It's constructed by discourse. So if the president says, we didn't break the treaty was unfair and it was fake news, and he says it loudly enough, and his media ecosystem amplifies it.
And for millions of people, the reality shifts.
Yeah.
The treaty becomes fake in the public consciousness.
And so the mechanism of power is no longer just material, guns and money. It becomes, and this is the key phrase from the text, performative and discursive.
Performative power. Let's break that down. The text highlights a key mechanism here. It calls it transaction over principle.
This is where the Melian logic gets applied directly to 2026 alliances. In the modern order, an alliance like NATO is based on a principle. It's a kind of marriage. For better or worse, an attack on one is an attack on all.
It's a vow. A sacred vow, almost.
But the postmodern Athenian, as the text calls him, sees an alliance as a rental agreement, or maybe a monthly subscription service.
That's a very nice continent you have there in Europe. It would be a shame if something happened to its security.
It is literally the mafia protection racket model, but elevated to the level of international statecraft. The text says it's replacing the rule with the deal. Every single interaction is a zero-sum game. There's no such thing as collective security. There is only, I get paid or you get crushed.
Okay, and the second mechanism you mentioned is unpredictability. The spectacle.
This part is fascinating. In the modern world, stability is the ultimate goal. You want your allies to know exactly what you're going to do. You want financial markets to be calm and predictable.
Right. Boring is good. Stability is strength.
But for the postmodern Athenian, stability is weakness. If you are predictable, you can be managed. You can be countered. The text argues that this Trump 2.0 uses discursive chaos as a weapon.
This is the fire and fury approach.
Exactly that. One day you might get a tweet saying you're going to nuke a country, and then the next day you get another tweet saying their leader's a great guy, and you're in love.
And the entire global media spends the next 48 hours hyperventilating, trying to figure out what the real policy is.
And while they're hyperventilating, they aren't looking at what you're actually doing behind the scenes. You consume all the oxygen in the room, you keep your enemies, and just as importantly, your allies, completely off balance.
Can't plan against you.
How can they? They don't know which version of you is going to show up to work tomorrow.
It's weaponized ADHD on a geopolitical scale.
It's a spectacle of strength that completely obscures the actual mechanics of what's happening. The performance becomes the reality.
I want to pause here and really look at the concept decoder section of our brief,
Right.
because the author is throwing around some heavy academic terms, and I want to make sure we nail them down for anyone listening.
Good idea. Let's translate them into plain English.
Okay, term 1, the Melian Dialogue. We've covered the history, but give me the cocktail party definition. If I'm at a dinner party in 2026 and this comes up, how do I explain it in one sentence?
Simple. It's the moment in recorded history that proves the old saying, might makes right. It's the absolute rejection of moral arguments in favor of a pure power calculus. And the quote you need to remember is, the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must.
Perfect. Okay, term 2, the postmodern condition. This is from the philosopher Jean-François Lyotard.
Right. The cocktail party definition for this one is, it's that feeling you get when you realize all the big stories we used to believe in, like God or the inevitable march of science or America is the good guy, are just that. They're just stories. It's the loss of faith in the script of history.
And the quote from the source.
The famous one is, incredulity toward meta-narratives.
Incredulity toward meta-narratives. I love that. It's just a very fancy way of saying, I don't believe your BS anymore.
Essentially, yes. That's a pretty good translation.
Okay, term 3, discursive power. This one is Foucault.
Yes. The cocktail party definition here is, it's the ability to make something true just by saying it over and over again from a position of authority until everyone else is just too exhausted to argue. You can think of it as weaponized gaslighting on a global scale.
The source connects this to things like alternative facts or dismissing intelligence reports as fake news.
Right, exactly. It's treating information not as a tool for understanding the world, but as a weapon for shaping it.
Which brings us to our last one, and honestly, this one scares me a little. Term 4, epistemological warfare.
It should. Epistemology is the study of knowledge, of how we know what we know, and warfare is, well, warfare.
So it's a war on the concepts of knowing.
It's a war for the very architecture of reality. The cocktail party definition would be, A strategy that aims not to win an argument, but to destroy the enemy's ability to even have one.
Yeah.
You flood the zone with so much noise, so much contradictory information, so many alternative facts, that your adversary loses the ability to distinguish truth from fiction.
So if I can't even tell if a missile is coming or not, I can't possibly make a decision on how to react.
You're paralyzed, exactly. The text quotes a line about the collapse of a shared language. It's not just about lying anymore, it's about destroying the very concept of truth, so that the only thing left is power. The loudest voice wins.
Okay, that's a terrifying toolkit. So let's move into the scenario simulator, because theories are one thing, but I want to know what this actually looks like on a random Tuesday in 2026. The text gives us 3 distinct scenarios. Let's walk through the first one, the Taiwan fog.
This is definitely the high-stakes table. This is where the theory gets very real very fast.
So walk me through it. China starts mobilizing its navy. There are troop movements. In the modern world, the old playbook, what happens next?
In the old world, the response is clear. It's scripted. The U.S. president gets on television, probably from the Oval Office, and says something unequivocal. We stand with our democratic partner, Taiwan, do not miscalculate, back off.
Right. You draw a clear red line. Deterrence through certainty.
Precisely.
Yeah.
But in the Trump 2.0 postmodern scenario laid out in the text, the response is the exact opposite.
What happens? Day 1, the ships are moving.
Day 1, the president sends a tweet. But it's not about the ships. It says that China is taking advantage of the U.S. on trade, but that President Xi is a brilliant man and a good friend. There is no mention of Taiwan at all.
Okay, so immediate confusion, no clear signal.
Day 2. The State Department, the modern part of the government, issues a very generic boilerplate statement expressing deep concern. But then, that night, the president holds a rally in Ohio, and he goes off script. He says, why should we protect these islands that don't pay us? They stole our chip business.
Oh my God, now Taipei is in a full-blown panic.
Complete panic. But then, day 3, a new tweet, maybe at 3 in the morning, it says, if China touches a single hair on their head, there will be hell to pay like they've never seen before.
So he just flip-flopped 3 times in 3 days.
But see, in the author's view, he didn't flip-flop. He created a state of what the text calls undecidability. It's a term from the philosopher Derrida. It doesn't mean the policy is a secret. It means that the policy does not exist as a fixed thing. It is created in the moment.
So if you're in Beijing sitting there looking at all this noise, do you invade or not?
And that is the billion-dollar question. The text argues this fog creates a short-term paralysis. China might actually hesitate because they simply cannot calculate the risk. Is he a madman who will start World War III over a tweet? Or is he a paper tiger, an isolationist who will do nothing?
But what's the long-term risk of that strategy?
The text warns that deterrence, real deterrence, relies on one thing above all else: credibility. If nobody knows what you stand for, if your red lines are constantly shifting, eventually they'll assume you stand for nothing.
And it might just call your bluff.
And then you stumble into a catastrophic war, not out of malice, but because you refuse to be clear.
Okay, let's move to scenario B. This one feels a little closer to home for a lot of our listeners, the NATO extortion.
The text calls this particular strategy the spectacle of public bargaining. It's pure performance art.
So how does the ritual go, according to the source?
Well, in the old modern world, disagreements about things like GDP spending on defense happened in quiet, closed rooms. You know, diplomats, Sherpas, people in gray suits looking at spreadsheets.
Very boring. Very professional.
Exactly. In the 2026 scenario, the disagreement is the main event. Imagine a NATO summit. The cameras are rolling. It's being broadcast live. The president doesn't get up and talk about defense strategies against Russia. He pulls out a prop. A literal invoice.
An invoice. You're kidding.
He holds it up and says, Germany, you are past due. You owe us $400 billion for your protection. He does it right in front of the German chancellor. It's maximum public humiliation.
And he threatens to pull troops out.
Right then and there. Pay up by midnight or our troops are coming home. It's pure reality TV drama, a cliffhanger. But the text points out something really crucial here. The threat is the real asset. If he actually pulled the U.S. out of NATO, the show would be over. He would lose all his leverage.
So he needs the crisis to be perpetual.
He needs to be the abusive landlord who comes by every single month threatening eviction, but never actually evicts you, because the fear is what gives him power.
And this must serve a domestic political purpose,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, absolutely. It tells his base back home, look at me, I'm the strong man. I'm making these freeloading allies finally pay their fair share. It's pure spectacle. But over time, It completely hollows out the alliance from the inside. Who is willing to die for a landlord?
That's a good question. And it leads us right into the third scenario, which is where the text suggests this entire strategy just hits a brick wall, the systemic failure. Things like climate change, pandemics.
This is the fundamental limitation of the Melian Dialogue. You can bully the millions, you can try to extort Germany, you can even create a fog of war around China to a certain degree.
But you can't bully a hurricane. You can't make a deal with a virus.
A virus does not have a Twitter account. The rising ocean doesn't care about your discursive power. These things are not social constructs.
So what happens when a postmodern Athenian, a leader who believes all reality is negotiable, comes face to face with a Category 5 hurricane?
They try to use the same toolkit because it's the only one they have. They try to gaslight the storm.
What does that even look like?
It looks like saying the storm isn't that big, or the scientists are lying to you about the storm, or it's a hoax created by our enemies to make us look bad.
But the water level still rises. The wind still blows at 180 miles an hour.
Exactly. And the text argues that this is the fatal flaw in the whole worldview. The postmodern approach treats everything as a narrative that can be spun or renegotiated, but the physical world, biology, chemistry, physics, is completely immune to spin.
So the administration just ends up screaming at the rain.
And while they're screaming, the system's required to actually respond to the disaster collapse. You get an incompetent, chaotic response because the government has forgotten how to deal with facts. It only knows how to deal with narratives.
This brings us to the fifth section of our brief, the paradox, the so what of it all. Because I have to admit, for a certain type of person, this all sounds kind of, well, badass. Yeah, let's be Athens. Let's stop being suckers and crush the weak.
It absolutely appeals to the cynicism of the age, no question. But the text warns of what it calls the postmodern Athenian's paradox.
And what is that?
The author uses another concept from Foucault, autoimmunization. It's the idea that power produces its own resistance.
Like the body creating antibodies to fight a virus.
Precisely. If the United States acts like a chaotic, transactional, unpredictable bully on the world stage, the rest of the world doesn't just sit there and cry. They organize.
They form an anti-chaos coalition.
The text actually suggests this bizarre future where rivals like, say, China and the European Union, maybe even with quiet support from Russia, start forming their own agreements just to create a zone of stability against the United States.
Not because they agree on ideology.
Not at all. But purely out of commercial and security necessity. They need a predictable system to trade in, to operate in. If you're the source of all the chaos, eventually the world just starts to build new systems that route around the damage.
So by trying to dominate everyone through chaos, you end up isolating yourself.
You become the rogue state. The world designs new payment systems to avoid the US dollar. They build new supply chains that don't rely on you. They sign new defense pacts that explicitly exclude Washington. Your power evaporates.
And then there's the other side of this. The part the text calls the tragedy of the weak.
For me, this is the emotional core of the entire document. The text talks about the loss of a shared language.
Can you explain that a little more?
When the Melians went to that negotiation, they appealed to justice. They did that because they believed, fundamentally, that the Athenians also cared about the concept of justice, even if they disagreed on its application.
They thought they were speaking the same language.
Yes. But in 2026, if a small nation, say a Baltic state, appeals to international law or human rights, and the U.S. president responds with a sarcastic meme or a dismissive shrug.
It's like you're speaking into a void. Your words have no purchase.
It's the soul-crushing realization that your words have no currency anymore. The tragedy isn't just that you might be crushed, it's that you are silenced. You have no way to even plead your case because the court itself has been dissolved.
Wow. Okay, we need to try and land this plane. Okay. This brings us to section 6, the aha moment. We need a master analogy, something that wraps this whole nightmare up in a bow.
I think we've been kind of dancing around it this whole time, but let's really solidify the reality TV producer analogy.
Okay, lay it out for me.
The old world, the modern world we've been talking about was a scripted drama. You can think of a show like The West Wing. Everybody had a role, there was a script, there was a plot. Diplomacy was all about following the script.
Even the villains followed the script, in a way.
Yeah.
The Soviets, for example, had their own set of rules.
Correct. But the new world, the world of the postmodern Athenian, is reality TV. And on a reality TV show, what is the #1 goal?
Ratings.
Ratings, shock, keeping the audience engaged. The goal isn't a coherent story. The goal is retention.
And in this analogy, the president is the executive producer.
He's not a contestant. He's the one who creates the environment. He can change the rules of the game in the middle of an episode just to spike the ratings. Surprise! Tonight, it's a double elimination.
And the other nations, Germany, Taiwan, Ukraine, they're the contestants.
Yeah.
And they're all trying to win the game using the rule book they were given at the beginning of the season.
But the producer can shred that rule book whenever he gets bored. The strong in this world is the one who controls the edit. The weak are just raw footage to be used however the producer sees fit.
That is a deeply, deeply disturbing analogy.
It explains the spectacle, though. The cruelty isn't just for cruelty's sake. It's for the audience. It's content.
Okay, the mic drop quote. What's the single most powerful sentence in the text that sums all this up?
For me, it has to be this one. The tragedy for the weaker parties is not only the threat of material destruction, but the collapse of a shared language in which to plead their case.
The collapse of a shared language. That feels like the tombstone of the entire modern order.
It really is.
All right, before we let everyone go, I want to arm them with 3 audio hooks. 3 provocative things they can say at a dinner party to sound terrifyingly smart.
I like it. Hook number 1. In 2026, truth isn't something you find, it's a weapon you forge to humiliate your enemies.
Oof, okay. Hook number 2.
Your alliance isn't a marriage vow anymore, it's a monthly subscription service, and the price just went up.
And hook number 3.
And the last one. The most dangerous weapon in the modern arsenal isn't a missile, it's the ability to make your adversary doubt reality itself.
Well, we have successfully depressed everyone listening.
I think the term is enlightened despair.
I feel like I need to go read the technical manual for a toaster, just to feel something real again, you know. Insert bread, push lever down, toast pops up, simple cause and effect.
You should enjoy that very modernist toaster while you still can, before the postmodern toaster demands a subscription fee just to release your bread.
Please don't give them any ideas.
My apologies.
Listeners, here is your final provocation. Just for the next few days, watch the news, look at the headlines, and ask yourself this question. Is this policy or is this performance art?
And maybe ask yourself a second question. If the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must, which one are you in this new algorithm?
Are you the producer or are you just one of the contestants?
Good luck figuring that out.
Thanks for joining us in the Doctorate of the Absurd. Stay curious and maybe watch your back.